I think it is safe to say that a lot of things have to go right for one to make it in the world of esports. You have to dedicate thousands and thousands of hours to your craft, become a certifiable master, and let's not kid ourselves, get absurdly lucky. And for every single one of us hoping to one day make a living after spending years in the depths of matchmaking hell, there is no end to the number of obstacles in our way. But what if I told you that for a certain subsection of the gaming world, those obstacles transcend awful teammates and gambler's luck? That right down to the engineering of their mouse and keyboard, they're starting at a disadvantage. So much so that they literally have to learn how to play backwards. I'm talking, of course, about left-handed gamers, one of the most fascinating subsections of the wild world that is competitive gaming. And today, we're going to explore how they defy the odds. From teaching themselves to use their mouse in the wrong hand, to cracking open and modding controllers. These guys have done, and will presumably continue to do, whatever it takes to game. Suffice it to say, it's a tough life for a left-handed gamer. Buying a computer or a monitor, that's easy. But trying to buy a mouse or a keyboard if you don't click fools with your right hand, that is a nightmare.
Now, the button is too far away because normally you'd be using your sort of this finger to press it, and then maybe your thumb here to press this button.
Size, shape, and overall performance can help you decide. But for some left-handed gamers, none of this matters. Now, some of them just say f it and teach themselves how to play backwards. Some of them even mod their own peripherals just to play the games they love. They've realized that plenty of manufacturers just don't seem to give a shit about lefties' physical limitations. So in a world that seemingly isn't interested in accommodating left-handed gamers, what can they do to overcome these challenges? Now, certain game devs and peripheral companies have already thought of ways to assist them, while others have decided to give up on them entirely. But no matter what, they keep finding ways to adapt, and they'll do just about anything to make it work if it means that they can game. Now, according to a report from the Washington Post back in 2019, 10% of the world's population is left-handed. And historically, I think most of you probably know that they've been royally f***ed over. Hell, in the Middle Ages, left-handed people were even accused of practicing witchcraft, because of course, even Satan himself was allegedly left-handed.
It's magic! He must be a witch!
And while it is certainly true that Kenny S is not of this world and can be a bit of a demon on the server, for the sake of this video, we'll be focusing on left-handed gamers and the unprecedented ways that they've managed to defy the odds. No matter how much of a PC mouse and keyboard elitist you may or may not have become, chances are you've used a controller or gamepad before. So let's start there. Controllers are really only made to be held one way, and if you want to get good, that's a massive roadblock. Nearly all of them have the majority of the buttons located on the right side, and left-handed people are just forced to use their non-dominant hand to do all the heavy lifting. Now, some games at least allow you to switch what analog stick controls your movement, but you're still forced to use your right hand for most of the inputs.
One way to hold a controller. Dimitri, please. As far back as the original Xbox, you had pro Halo players like Walshy pioneering the claw technique, using your middle finger on the right trigger and resting your index finger on the face buttons. Hell, I've even seen kids playing with the damn thing upside down. Okay, they may be a small minority, but you get the idea. These days, with the Xbox Elite controllers, Scuff, and a whole slew of other custom controller companies giving you the option to remap buttons to the back of the controller, left-handed gamers are afforded even more flexibility to suit their needs. Consoles now will even allow you to remap the face buttons to, say, the D-pad if you want to move that duty over to your left hand without splurging on a shiny new peripheral. Controller's not looking so bad now, is it, Mr. Mouse and Keyboard Elitist?
I mean, yeah, let's see how that controller stacks up in a 1v1. Eyes emoji. 100. Fire, fire. Coming soon, TM. Now, for many players facing the lefty problem across the whole of esports, that solution has been the only option. Simply play backwards. In the world of MOBAs, for instance, like League of Legends, one of the greatest mid laners in the entire world, Knight, has been playing with his mouse in his left hand his entire career, and capturing that dominant hand pinpoint precision.
One player at TES now 369 once again, trying to get in there, but Knight, he's trying to make something of this fight here. That's a double kill now. But he is still incredibly low. And he's gonna hop back and get a third one and get a heal to get out of this.
But perhaps surprisingly, that isn't the industry standard. In League, like many games, most lefties just seem to teach themselves to play right-handed to avoid the nightmare of changing their keybinds. And although the learning curve on any peripheral is far from trivial, it is those on PC who face the biggest challenge. Let me paint a picture for you. Alright, so you hop into a CSGO deathmatch server and get ready to frag out. Now, most people have their mouse in their right hand, and they have their left hand situated on or around the WASD keys of their keyboard. Now, imagine that you're left-handed and using the exact same equipment. You simply move your mouse into your left hand and put your right hand on the WASD keys. Seems simple enough, right? Well, no. It actually fucking sucks. Since the movement keys for most games are located on the left side of your keyboard, you're playing with far less space between your hands. And for that reason, we've seen left-handed players like Woxic play on a much higher sensitivity. The lack of desk space or mousepad space literally gave him no other option. But, like I mentioned earlier, some players have just taught themselves to play backwards. And this works for them, because it's literally all they've ever known. Look at the inimitable Kenny S, for instance. He is arguably the most legendary AWPer in the whole of Counter-Strike, and his entire legacy was built on him playing with his mouse in his non-dominant hand, rather than messing around with his keybinds. And he still manages to hit inhuman flicks like this.
Shox really detached from the action. Kenny, first step to bat, he finds the shot, but he's being pressured up close. He needs Shox to support him. He's watching for a flank, but what? Oh my god, Kenny gets an incredible kill against Sixer. I didn't even see the flick. He hits that shot somehow, and it's another round for G2. What was that last shot?
But not every player is willing to learn to play backwards, so they continue using their left hand for their mouse. The thing is, in doing so, some left-handed WASD gamers experience discomfort in their wrists because their hands are simply too close together. So, to give you an idea as to just how shitty this feels, I decided to play 20 minutes of CSGO Deathmatch with my mouse in my left hand and my WASD keys in my right. And holy shit, was it ugly.
Come on, dude, come on! It's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Yep. This is about how I thought this was gonna go. Yep, that sounds about right.
So yeah, in case you couldn't tell, I hated just about every second of that. Now, hearing all of this, you're probably asking the same question that I did when I first learned about all of it, which is, why don't these people just change their keyboard layout and buy a fucking left-handed mouse? Now, plenty of games will allow you to remap your keys to IJKL, but it's not as simple as that, because as you know, there's more to gaming than movement. The shift and control keys are commonly used in many games, and unless your hands are the size of Winston's from Overwatch, then good luck using your pinky finger to hit them. And that's why many players just make their own personal keybinds based on what game they're playing.
8, 4, 5, and 6 are my movement keys, and all of my 4 fingers sit on the number pad, and my thumb sits on the directional pad, which has its own set of abilities and buttons.
Doesn't that just look fucking awful? Anyway, this brings us to the final nail in the coffin. Mice. Now, some manufacturers, like Razer, have their own mice which are dedicated to left-handed gamers. But most of the big names, like Logitech, SteelSeries, and Zowie, have historically opted to just go ambidextrous. For years, they have been making mice that work for just about everyone, left-handed or not. But right now, more than ever, we are in the midst of a massive left-handed gamer mouse crisis. You see, with each passing generation of peripherals, competitors have wanted their mice to be smaller, lighter, and without wires. Which makes sense, right? You can flick these 60-gram hole-filled Swiss cheese-looking things faster than ever. Some of the most popular mice, like the Zowie S2 and the Logitech G Pro, were famous for being some of the best ambidextrous mice on the market. But times have changed, and Zowie specifically has discontinued all of their ambidextrous mice, while the newest iteration of the G Pro, the Superlight, has removed the option to swap the buttons from left to right.
But yes, physically still more the same, minus those interchangeable side buttons, so lefties, I'm sorry they alienated you this time around.
And that is the untold truth of how lefties have been able to cut it in PC gaming. From learning to play backwards, to remapping their keybinds, to making do with less desk space than a burgeoning 13-year-old Hiko. Now, to be fair, there is a bit of a safe haven for lefties. Sort of. In fighting games, most players use either arcade sticks or pads, and we've already talked about controllers. Sticks feature the, well, stick on the left and the buttons on the right. Now, for most left-handed players, this works out just fine, because their dominant hand is already on the stick, where movement is much more important. And some players have taken up the hitbox, which functions just like a stick, but with movement buttons instead of the, well, actual stick. Some players have even adopted the Seth Killian cross-handed method, with their right hand on the stick and their left hand on the buttons, but they're part of a very small minority. Back in 2012, American peripheral company Nyko actually released an ambidextrous fight stick, allowing players to move the stick to either side, but it never really caught on. Instead, some left-handed players began modding their own controllers. They take the controller apart, rotate the stick 180 degrees, remap all of their buttons, and then play with the entire unit upside down, just to switch what side the stick is on.
You can simply just take the whole lever. Right now it's facing this way, same thing. Now you want to rotate it and then put it back in and screw it back in. As you can see, the lever is in its correct orientations.
Now, although in some cases they've literally had to take apart and rebuild their controllers, the ease of the common fight stick has allowed lefties in the FGC a slight reprieve from the battle on PC. But I mean, come on, like, they have to build their own fucking controllers. Which, in many ways, is what makes the untold story of lefties in esports so fascinating. We took their mice away, keyboard manufacturers ignored them from the origin of the product's design, and we forced them to play backwards. And yet still, we find players like Woxic, Kenny, and Knight at the highest level of esports competition, making it up as they go. But I felt really bad for those kids in the clips. Like, I felt really bad for the first. I was like, bro, you just like, some kid was like sitting top mid with an op, and I'm running up at him and he peeks and he misses the op shot, so he has to reload, and I'm just like hounding him down with his AK, and he's just, I'm like, dude, like, you gotta hit your ones, man. You gotta hit that. Like, you can't miss that shot. Like, that's miserable.